whether going to war is justified. And it can't meet just one or two. All 6 need to be met, which, as you can imagine, is pretty difficult to do.
Guys, it's like really hard to justify war. This video just came out today and it is already getting on my nerves way more than it should. And I'll just jump right into it, Philly D style. Let's go. We'll start with the first 2 points and then the last section. But we are looking for just cause and intention in the Iraq War.
A widely accepted reason to wage war is self-defense. And this is one of the levers the Bush administration pulled to make their case. In his 2002 State of the Union address, 4 months after the September 11th terrorist attacks, President Bush warned Americans about Iraqi President Saddam Hussein's hostility toward the U.S.
So, I mean, the first problem here we have is self-defense, right? Do you really buy that? Do you really buy that it's self-defense from a nation thousands of miles away where we don't need to have interest there anyway? Is it actually a fear of being pushed out, of having the interest pushed out? Is that what it is? Because that sounds more likely, and that sounds like that's not self-defense. Do you know who is stuck in an imperial war and who is defending themselves right now? Ukraine. And I'm not a libbed-up fucking Ukraine Zelensky fan like these people probably are. The U.S.'s situation in 2003 is not like Ukraine. Let's not pretend.
And a few months later, Vice President Dick Cheney said in a speech, quote, "There is no doubt that Saddam Hussein now has weapons of mass destruction. There is no doubt he is amassing them to use against our friends, against our allies, and against us."
It's 20 years later. We know that there were no weapons. Why are we discussing this like it mattered? Why? And you should notice how there is no mention of oil interest. Not one. Who runs Crash Course? Hank Green and John Green. They love to virtue signal how fucking woke they are online. And then your company is producing this pro-Bush Iraq war like image rehabilitation. I don't believe it. How do they not have any shame? John Green, Hank Green, how do you not have any shame putting your company's production on this? You should have a little bit of shame for yourself. These videos are immensely popular, and Crash Course has credibility. These videos are shown in schools. This is only a couple hours old, so I'm not going to say that this has been shown in a school already, but this video will be shown to some 15-year-old, and this will be some 15-year-old who, mind you, a 15-year-old was born after this all went down. This is going to be their understanding. Because this is what a supposedly liberal outlet is teaching. And there is no excuse for only talking about what Bush said his intentions were and not looking at the facts on the ground. That doesn't make any sense. Why is this video incurious about the oil interest? Why?
Bush officials argued that because Hussein failed to abide by UN weapons resolutions, we couldn't trust him, even though we had no definitive proof that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. So this approach would likely be considered preventive rather than preemptive.
So preventive means that there is no evidence. There's just a special word for it, so it sounds like it's still nebulously included in the definition of justifiable. Preventive, she just said, preventive means maybe, and maybe means there is not evidence. And here they can't help but admit it. The UN set the boundary of what makes him a criminal in this regard, and then go after him for it. This is specifically about UN talking about what countries can and can't have. Why? Why is America the world police? Why is the UN the world police? Why? Be critical.
Beyond protecting Americans from the possibility of future attack, the Bush administration asserted that their intention was to depose Saddam Hussein and bring democracy to Iraq.
Deposing Saddam Hussein wasn't America's place. And they throw in the good old-fashioned, oh, we were bringing democracy too. Uncritically repeating that we brought democracy.
And there's no question that Hussein was a brutal dictator. In one instance during his nearly 30-year rule, he unleashed poison gas on a Kurdish village that killed 5,000 people he suspected of disloyalty. But many Americans were and are suspicious of the Bush administration's intentions. And even if the war was justified for humanitarian reasons, it's complicated.
Guys, even if America used the genocide of the Kurds as a scapegoat, it's complicated. But we will not talk about any of the financial factors or global factors that make it so. It's complicated, but we will not tell you why. And also, the complication comes from the fact that it was an obvious excuse for something that was financial. The simple fact is that the U.S. did not have any standing or interest in saving the people of Iraq. They only had financial interest in the area. Again, this is not a PragerU video. This is a crash course video uncritically repeating what George W. Bush said in the lead up to the invasion of Iraq. Completely uncritically reporting the reasons he gave and comparing them against just war theory. Not having any interest in investigating the material reality of what went down.
Kofi Annan, the UN Secretary General at the time, said that the invasion of Iraq violated the UN Charter, and millions of people protested across the globe, forming the largest peace demonstration since the Vietnam War. An intention to defend human rights sounds noble, but that doesn't necessarily mean it passes the just war test.
Your fucking liberal centrist test is not the end-all be-all if something is justified. All they are willing to do is pay lip service to the fact that there were dissidents to the invasion. They're saying that people said that it was bad, but they're not saying what they said. They didn't mention the word oil once yet, and they don't once the entire video.
Just war theory is still evolving. Recently, philosophers have introduced jus post bellum, justice after war, which asks, what's the right thing to do when a war is over? If the point of a just war is to achieve peace, then combatants should be held accountable afterwards for their actions during war. And the rules of peace should be established too.
And here at the end, we're talking about jus post bellum. What do you do after the war? What did the U.S. do in Iraq after the war? They sold Iraqi oil interest piecemeal to overseas contractors after installing a U.S.-approved government. They could not wholly privatize the oil because that would be a war crime of themselves to do, so they had to sell it piecemeal to contractors and sell the reconstruction of Iraq, those construction contracts, to American interests. That is what happened jus post bellum. And for some reason, not for some reason, we know why, they did not give an example of the topic of this video. We spent 12 minutes talking about the Iraq war and talking about just war theory in light of each other, in tandem, and we talk about just post bellum, but we do not talk about what the U.S. did in Iraq after the war, probably because that contradicts the intention that was set out in the video and then not questioned.